Hello and thanks for joining us for today's very special announcement. If you've been following our teasers on the internet, you'll realize that we're about to unveil some very exciting alpha product. Today's presentation has two parts. The first part will reveal the product itself and then follow that up with local pricing and availability. The second part will be a more casual session with our product specialist Sean, where we'll show you a little bit more detail about how the product works. In 2007, we launched the Alpha brand and with it the A100, our first DSLR camera. In 2008, we introduced A900, the first full-frame interchangeable lens camera from Sony. In 2009, we introduced our mirrorless E-mount NEX series, a very compact and stylish addition to our range. And today we'll announce not one, but two groundbreaking new products, because today our mirrorless range goes full frame.
Sony.
Before we begin our product overview, I thought I'd share some local pricing and availability information. In Australia, we will range three different variants of the Alpha 7. First, the A7 body only, the 24 megapixel version. This version will also be available with a Sony 28-70mm kit lens. And on top, the very premium Alpha 7R 36 megapixel E-mount interchangeable lens camera. We're also very excited to announce three additional full-frame Zeiss lenses to our lineup. The 35mm f2.8 lens, a 55mm f1.8 lens, and finally a Zeiss 24-70 f4 lens. Both A7 and A7R will begin shipping from November timing. Alright, so now we're going to get into a bit of a hands-on product session. I'm joined today by digital imaging product specialist Sean Elwood. Welcome.
Thank you. Hello everyone.
So Sean, what I wanted to do today was use this time to introduce the product. We're lucky enough to have an A7 here with us, and I wanted to compare it against a traditional full-frame product and just do a bit of an introduction about the key features of this particular design. So in front of me here now I have an A99, so this is our flagship full-frame product, and it's around 750 grams, so it's definitely not light but still very usable and compact, and this is probably around the size that you'd be dealing with a traditional full-frame DSLR. And I think the coolest part for me when I first saw the A7 a few days ago was this moment. This is the A7 compared to the A99. So it is tiny. So we are talking about 465 grams for the body versus over 700 grams for your traditional DSLR. So it's significantly smaller in all aspects of size and weight. So I think it's a drastic step forward for, I guess, Sony and interchangeable lens manufacturers. So you can see here it's a lot smaller, and that was the first thing that I kind of that caught my eye about this camera.
Yeah, no, it's really going to massively shake things up. And the thing is here, you know, you're looking at the A99, which when we introduced it was the smallest and lightest full frame camera, interchangeable lens camera on the market, briefly. But you know, it is a light and small full frame camera, you know, within its class. So that the A7 is this much smaller and lighter is pretty incredible.
I think the other thing for me as well is, so I was comparing it against the A99 and I thought, wow, that's really, really small and very compact. And I know that some of our professional photographer friends were really, really interested in seeing something that was smaller. Most particularly for, I guess, their travel bag when they're traveling around. And obviously you're not going to take a very expensive piece of kit in your checked luggage. So it was important for them to have something that they could always keep with them on the plane. The other key moment for me, I guess, is when I compared the A7 against an existing NEX. So what I'll do is I'll hold up this is our NEX 6 right here, and then I'll just take the cap off the A7, and now we're doing a sensor comparison. So you can see here they're both a very similar size, but the sensor difference is massive. So your traditional APS-C versus your full frame 24 megapixel in this case sensor. So it was a massive moment for me when I saw that, and obviously all of the things that are associated with your full frame sensor, so better low light performance and higher image quality and the ability to blow the images up bigger, it was just a really key point.
Yeah.
That I thought was interesting.
Yeah, you get 2.3 times the surface area of just silicon to catch light on the A7. So, you know, more than doubling your performance in terms of light gathering, and of course, as you say, like the amount of background blur you can generate is just fantastic.
And I think just again, we'll just compare this against, I guess, a traditional NEX camera. So the size and weight is very similar, but we are talking about, of course, the full frame sensor. So really huge step forwards here for Sony in particular. So Sean, you've been lucky enough to experience the A7 for the last few days. I wanted to ask you to give a bit of an introduction to, I guess, each of the panels or each of the functions on the A7, so the audience can see what controls are on each side, and just open all the flaps and explain all the bits and pieces, if you will.
Yeah, great. So of course on the front we have you know, it's a conventional E-mount, so nothing about the mount has changed. You'll still be able to attach all your E-mount lenses, so if you have existing APS-C lenses, they'll still function on your A7 cameras. They will crop to APS-C by default, but you'll still be able to, you know, make full use of those. On the handle here we have our grip sensor, and we'll just kind of move right along to the top plate, where of course there's a lot happening. So one of the big things that we wanted to do with the 7 series cameras was take lessons from the best of what we've done with all of our existing cameras. So we've got lots and lots of controls. Our NEX 7 had, of course, the tri-navi operation, which meant 3 dials, and we tried to take that and keep it, but improve on it. So here on the front we have 1 dial here. Typically it's going to be controlling something like your aperture or shutter speed, and again on the back another sort of primary control dial. We also have a dial on the back which allows you to directly control ISO, and we'll get to that in just a second. Also on the top plate we have our exposure dial, and this is something that we took from our R series of Cybershot cameras. So the HX50, the RX1 and the RX1R all feature a exposure dial, and that's just a really great way to very quickly adjust the look of your photos and your level of exposure without needing to necessarily dive into the nitty-gritty of aperture, shutter speed, ISO. We also have, of course, our mode dial on the top plate here, which is really key. And on that, it's nice to see we also have our 2 custom modes. So you can assign a couple of specific settings. You know, particularly if you're working quickly between indoors and outdoors, you can have those at the ready, so you're always ready to shoot in exactly the settings that you require at a moment's notice. We also have our first custom function button. This by default will be set to adjust your focus settings, and there are a lot of those on this camera, which is very, very responsive focus system. But this, along with the two other dedicated custom buttons, is completely customizable, and there are 46 different functions you could assign to this button. So, another thing that we've really sought to keep and to enhance on this camera is customizability. So we'll look at the back now. And on the back of the camera, of course, dominated by that 121K dot screen that gives us heaps of resolution to see what we're doing. And then over on the side here, just a bunch of buttons. The amount of control that you have on this camera, despite the very limited real estate from it being so small, is really incredible. We have a 2-mode button here. You can see you can just switch between having autofocus, manual focus switch, and an AEL button. Then we have our function button. We have that dial, which I mentioned earlier, that by default will always adjust your ISO. Just without having to press anything, you just turn that dial and you're adjusting your ISO. And then a number of sort of options here. You can adjust drive mode, display, your white balance, and then some more custom function buttons. So custom 3 here, the trash. If you're in playback mode, of course, this will be trash, but in normal operation, it's a custom function. And then up the top here again, you can see that custom 2 button up here. And then, of course, over on this side, the menu button when you need to dive in and really make some customizations. Moving around to the side of the grip now, we can see, and I'll just move over into the center here again, we have NFC here, making it really easy to pair with any sort of Android devices that are equipped with NFC. And under the lug there, you can see the Wi-Fi logo as well, so you can very quickly pair. And we've also snuck the movie button around the side here. So, of course, we've learned our lesson, and we want to make sure that there's no surprise movies when you leave your camera in your bag. So we've moved around to the side here, and it can also be deactivated in still image mode so that it's locked out and you don't get any unintentional activations. The strap lugs, of course, are also designed on that swiveling mount, so they'll work with pretty much any strap you want to put on there and be very tangle resistant. We've got the door here as well, and this accepts any SD card as well as memory stick. And as you can see, there's a lot of weather sealing around the edges there. So that's, of course, part and parcel with keeping the entire body weather sealed. And we've made it so that the cards go into the grip this way, which means we have a much more sort of encompassing enclosure with that door. Moving around now to the other side, you can see we have 2 doors here. They're sort of flush fit, and we have a sort of metal finish on those so that they sort of look really nice when they're closed. Then when you pop them open, there are 2 material doors, so metal on the outside and then a rubberized interior to keep that weather seal really nice and snug. On the top, we have audio in and out, so headphone output and a 3.5mm audio in. And then on the lower half, we have sort of data input output, so an HDMI port and a USB port. So that's going to allow you to import and output data from your SD card, of course. And then if you want to get uncompressed HDMI for video capture and that sort of thing, you can also do that with this camera. So you get a really, really nice wide range of options there. I'll just seal that back up. Seals very nicely, clicks closed, so you know that you've got that seal back in place. And then down the bottom here, finally, using a W series battery, so you get a nice long battery life there, and a detachable door for the battery compartment. That also has a little miniature door there, so if you want to have mains power for your camera, you can attach our AC-PW20 adapter and have indefinite power supply for the camera, which is great if you're doing time-lapse work and that sort of thing.
Thank you so much, Sean. Before we move on to our lenses and accessories, I just wanted to quickly touch on two other features, I guess, that aren't immediately obvious about this camera when you look at it. First is it does include NFC and Wi-Fi, so you compare it to your smartphone to use the smart remote feature, which works for Android devices and also Apple devices as well. And secondly, is the integrated, one of the coolest things I think about the camera is its dual menu functionality. So it comes installed with both the NEX style or easy to use menu for those people who I guess are entering the full frame market for the first time, but also the traditional A-mount menu as well, which is highly customizable. So two different personalities for the same camera. So that was a really interesting point for me when I first learnt about it. So today for our demonstration we'll be using the A7, so the 24 megapixel version. However, we're also releasing the A7R, the 36 megapixel version. Sean, can you explain the differences between the two particular products?
Sure, yeah. So, I mean, obviously to look at them, incredibly similar. So if you look at the two of them on a shelf side by side, you could easily think they're the same camera if you didn't look at the badge. But there are a few differences cosmetically as well as under the hood. So we already spoke about the magnesium alloy construction. So the top plate is magnesium alloy, and also the chassis, which is really important because that's what anchors the lens mount to the sensor and keeps everything perfectly aligned. So it's vital for image quality. What you see the difference between the A7 and the A7R is the front plate of the camera. On the A7R is also magnesium alloy, which becomes important when you're using larger lenses and you're trying to support that from the grip. That'll give you a much firmer body with less flex on the A7R. We also have a few cosmetic differences on the top plate that you'll notice. So the two dials for exposure compensation and for the mode dial on the A7 have an aluminium top plate with a rubberized exterior. Whereas on the A7R, they're punched from a solid aluminium billet, so they're a bit more of a premium finish on the A7R. Other than that, of course, on the inside, a big difference in the sensor. So on the A7, we have an updated version of the sensor from our A99, so 24 megapixels. But then on the A7R, a big step up to 36.4 megapixels, a stack of extra resolution there, and also some really clever design on the sensor in terms of the micro lenses. So we've improved the utilization of that area. So we have what's called a gapless micro lens design, where more of the light is directed to the light sensitive areas of the sensor to give you what we call a better fill factor. So you're making better use of the light that reaches the sensor. And we also have an offset micro lens design, and what that means is the light that's at the very corners of the sensor, it's coming in at more of an angle to the sensor, and that can be difficult with a conventional sensor design. So with the A7R, those micro lenses are offset a little bit to catch that light better, and so what that means is with wider aperture lenses, or with lenses with what we call a shorter registration distance, so they're closer into the sensor physically, you're going to make better use of the light that hits the edges of the sensor. You're going to get better sharpness in the corners, and you're going to get far less issues with vignetting and things like that. So a really great step forward in terms of sensor technology. We've also, because of that improved use of the sensor space, improved the ISO performance with 36 megapixels. So in terms of ISO noise, when you really start to push that ISO up, of course, both being full frame sensors, they both perform really well. But the 36 megapixel A7R is actually neck and neck with the 24 megapixel A7 in terms of ISO performance. So even with the extra pixels and the smaller sensor sites, you still get really fantastic ISO performance.
So in addition to the A7 and the A7R, as I mentioned, we'll also be releasing 3 premium Zeiss lenses. The important thing to know about all of the lenses that we're releasing for the A7 and the A7R is that they are all dust and moisture sealed, as well as being obviously full frame. Sean, do you have any more information about just the lenses from Zeiss in general?
Sure. So we have our 35mm f2.8, which we'll just hold up for the camera here. A little too close, there we go. And what you'll notice is on the barrel of all these new Zeiss lenses, you'll see this FE. and that's to indicate that it's a full frame coverage lens. So when you're looking at lenses for the A7 and A7R, of course, all of our E-mount lenses will work on the A7, A7R perfectly, but if you want to take full advantage of that full frame sensor, you need to pick up an FE lens. So we have the 35mm f2.8, and we also have a 55mm f1.8, and that gives us just a really solid grounding pair of primes. 35mm, a nice sort of medium wide angle, and then the 55mm, that's your slightly longer than normal focal length with a really great fast aperture. So as a pair of compact primes to attach to your A7 cameras, they give you a nice pair of options. Then of course we also will be following up with our 24-70 f4. It's a classic focal length range and will be nicely compact with that f4 aperture. So I think that's all the really important stuff for the lenses.
Great, thank you. So the final thing that I wanted to discuss is the accessories that are being released for the A7 and the A7R. The most important part, or one of the coolest ones for me, is the vertical grip. So traditionally a vertical grip we've released with A99 and A77 as well, but never for, I guess, a camera that's NEX look and feel, so never one that's this small. So this particular vertical grip will be available on launch as well, and I'll just get you to, I mean, people understand how a vertical grip usually works, but just about a bit of key differences for this particular model.
Sure. So to attach it, we'll just begin by removing the door from the A7. There's a little latch on the underneath here which will allow me to just lift that door out, and then the door actually sits inside the grip here, so I'll just move the camera aside so we can show you, and I'll get that turned around. We just essentially latch it in here and it attaches just as if we were closing it there. Then we'll pop out the existing battery inside the A7, important step, and that chimney just goes up inside the body, and I'll screw it on there. Obviously on the A7 and A7R we're using a W series battery, which doesn't have quite the capacity of our M series battery from the A99. So adding a battery grip is a great choice for these cameras because it will give you a bit of extra battery life. Now you can see here you have a very firm grip. That's kind of, it's going to give you full sort of 5-finger grip on the camera here. Great if you're in sort of some tougher conditions, and typically the way you want to grip this is with your middle finger resting in that groove there, and then on top you can see you've got your front and your rear dial available for your front finger and for your thumb. On the top of the grip we have our C1 custom function button and of course the shutter release, and then on the back just the AF/MF toggle, which I'll show to the camera over here. AF/MF toggle and the power switch, which just allows you to switch the grip controls on and off. And if we have a quick look just at the battery caddy, we can see comes out, comes out, and we have 2 W series batteries mounted side by side. The camera will prefer to use the lower of the 2 batteries, so you always empty one battery fully before you move on to using the other one. So yeah, look, that's all the kind of the key points on the battery grip. So over to you, Mike.
Thank you so much. So this has been, I guess, the informal introduction to A7 and A7R. So thank you so much, Sean, for taking us around the product.
Thank you.
So for everyone watching, I guess the most exciting part of the information is when can we get one? So the product will start shipping, as I mentioned, mid to end November, and our pre-order system will be live on Friday. So you can start pre-ordering A7 and all the associated accessories as well. So thank you very much for watching, and Sean and myself will be available for the next 20 minutes to half an hour on the online chat to answer any questions you have, or if you want to find out more, please ask us directly. Failing that, the website sony.com.au will be updated tomorrow morning, so you can check out all the